You probably think you remember the basics of genetics from high school biology, right? Well, today, we're going to go way beyond that. We're diving into a hidden world where genes don't just politely add up. No, they argue, they override each other, and they team up in some pretty wild ways. We all remember those Punnett squares, don't we? Those neat little boxes that predict eye color or flower color. But here's the thing. They're a massive simplification. A beautiful and really useful one, for sure, but one that hides a reality that is so much messier and frankly a lot more fascinating. So why isn't genetics always that simple? Well, that's the big question we're tackling today. So, to understand the exceptions to the rule, we first have to get a solid handle on the rule itself. And for that, we have to thank Gregor Mendel, the absolute legend who's basically the father of modern genetics. His work with pea plants, it laid the entire foundation for how we think about hereditary. Okay, so at the very heart of this is the idea of an allele. The easiest way to think about it is like a specific flavor of a gene. So for pea color, you might have a yellow allele and a green one. You get one copy from each of your parents. Some of these alleles are dominant. They always show their trait, while others are recessive, and they only pop up if you get two copies of them. And this brings up two super important terms, genotype and phenotype. Your genotype is the actual genetic code you're carrying around, the combination of alleles. But your phenotype? That's the physical result. It's the trait you can actually see, like a yellow pea that pops up because of that dominant yellow allele. The Punnett square is the classic tool for figuring all this out. It shows us these simple, predictable probabilities. You cross a pea that has both a yellow and green allele with one that has two green alleles, and boom, you get a clean 50-50 shot at yellow or green offspring. It's all very neat, it's additive, and it's the bedrock of genetics. But it is not the whole story, not even close. So what happens when genes stop acting like solo artists and start behaving more like a band? Where the drummer's beat can completely change what the guitarist is playing? That's where things get really, really interesting. Because in the real world, genes are interacting with each other all the time. See, Mendel's model works so well because it assumes genes act independently. The gene for pea color doesn't care one bit about the gene for pea shape. But the reality is that the effect of one gene very often depends entirely on another. They're part of a team, and some players on that team have the power to just completely sideline the others. And this whole phenomenon, where one gene can interfere or even totally silence another one, has a name. It's called epistasis. Just think of it like a genetic override switch. One gene literally has the power to just flip an off switch on another gene, and it doesn't matter what that other gene was trying to do. Okay, here is the absolute classic example that makes this whole concept just click into place. You might have the genes for the most glorious, luscious brown hair. But if you also have the gene for baldness, it just doesn't matter, right? The baldness gene is epistatic to the hair color gene. It completely overrules it. So, if we want to get formal for a second, here's the definition. Epistasis is when the expression of one gene is affected, masked, or modified by one or more other genes. It's basically that genetic on-off switch we were just talking about. One gene's presence can totally mask the effects of another, just rendering it silent. So what this all boils down to is that a gene never, ever exists in a vacuum. Its effect, whether it's good, bad, or totally neutral, depends completely on the other genes that are hanging around it. It's all about context, what geneticists call the genetic background. And this idea doesn't just make things complicated for traits like hair color. No, it has huge, massive implications for how we understand the entire process of evolution itself. And to help visualize this, scientists use this really cool metaphor called a fitness landscape. I want you to imagine a map. On this map, the low points, the valleys, are organisms that are pretty poorly adapted to their environment. And the highest peaks represent organisms that have reached peak fitness. Evolution, then, is the journey of a species trying to climb its way up to the highest peak possible. Now, if genetics were purely additive, in Mendel's nice, neat, tidy world, this landscape would be just one single smooth hill. Every beneficial mutation would be a clear step up. It wouldn't matter what order they happened in, the path to the top is always obvious, always straightforward. But epistasis? Oh, epistasis completely shatters that simple picture. It transforms the landscape from one smooth hill into a rugged mountain range with tons of different peaks of all different heights and these deep, treacherous valleys in between. the journey just got a whole lot more complicated. So, what does a rugged landscape actually mean for evolution? Well, for one, there isn't always a simple uphill path to the best possible version of an organism. A species might climb a smaller hill and just get stuck there, unable to cross a deep valley to reach an even higher, better peak right next door. And this is crucial. The order of mutations suddenly becomes incredibly important. A mutation that's beneficial today might have been useless or even harmful if another mutation hadn't happened first to pave the way. All right, so we've taken a journey from pea plants all the way to evolutionary mountain ranges. Let's kind of zoom out now and look at the big picture. Why does understanding this complex web of interactions really matter? Here are the key things to remember. First, genetics is a team sport. It's so much more complex than simple dominant/recessive rules. It's all about this incredible network of interactions. Second, epistasis is the name of the game. It's that genetic trump card where one gene can just overrule another. Third, these interactions create those rugged evolutionary landscapes, which means evolution isn't some smooth climb. It's a messy, unpredictable journey. And finally, and maybe most importantly, you can't understand a gene in isolation. It only makes sense in the context of all the other genes in its network. All of this really leads us to one last big question. We've just uncovered one of these deeper, more complex rules of life. So if genes are constantly masking and modifying and interacting with each other in this hidden network, it just makes you wonder, right? What other profound rules are out there quietly shaping the incredible story of life on this planet?